Good morning and welcome to Experience Analytics Day 2. For those of you who joined us yesterday, welcome back. And for those of you joining for the first time, welcome to our virtual world.
I'm Natalie Williams.
And I'm Andy Gould.
So, what happens in our virtual world? Well, we're exploring client challenges and the analytics solutions that go with them. Yesterday, if you weren't able to make it, you missed Google and Network Rail talking about how they're using simulation to optimise the UK's railways. Today, I'm delighted to say that we've got Natwest Markets, joined by Dataiku, talking about how they're using analytics to revolutionise how they're operating on their trading floor.
But before we get on to today's episode, one thing we do at Deloitte is speak to you and many other organisations around the key pitfalls, the challenges and the insights you're getting from AI and analytics. And in the next few days, we can give you an insight that we're seeing in the market. Today's all around the return on investment you're getting, and over 70% of organisations, no matter the size or maturity, are seeing a return on that outlay and that initial investment within the first 2 years.
That 70% has rapidly increased over the last 2 years. When we asked the same question 2 years ago, people were saying that they were struggling to show the value from analytics. Now we've managed to understand how to calculate and show that value back to the business. So great progress. Okay. Time to get on with today's session. I've got great pleasure in welcoming Charlie from Natwest Markets, Adrian from Dataiku, and also Punitha to stage to kick the session off.
Thank you, Andy and Natalie. Hello, everyone. My name is Punitha. I'm a data engineering specialist in Deloitte. I lead the Dataiku capability in UK. Today, I'm here to talk about 3 key data challenges organizations face during AI adoption. The first being skill set gap. There are a lot of data and AI tools available in market, but it's often difficult to incorporate those tools, mainly because of lack of experience or lack of skill set. But we have business users who have a very good understanding of data and organization, but they don't have the technical capabilities. What if we can enable these users with AutoML tools, by which they can derive the key insight backed by the data without having to be technical? The second issue is operationalizing AI. There are organizations who have started their journey in data science and trying to operationalize AI processes. There are some who are just getting started. No matter where you are in the journey, operationalizing AI is very challenging, mainly because in an organization, teams often operate in silos, and lack of ability to monitor AI health or model governance doesn't help. It is crucial to have this kind of visibility so that we can build an enterprise AI solution. This is where Dataiku comes into picture. Dataiku provides a collaborative AI platform where you can get a single view of the data processes, which supports multiple personas, be it business users or an analyst or an engineer, can use the same platform in their own ways. So today we have Charlie from Natwest, who will take you through how they incorporated Dataiku into their system. And Adrian from Dataiku will talk you through more about the technical aspects of Dataiku. Thank you very much. Over to you, Charlie.
Thanks, Punitha. And that's right. My name's Charlie, and I'm the head of client analytics at Natwest Markets. I'm going to talk to you today about the investment banking business, the trading floor, and our experience of bringing data and analytics into that environment. So the investment banking industry is really about the transfer of risk, financial market risk, between a huge spectrum of different clients, from mortgage lenders to pension funds, from corporates to hedge funds. And the central stage of this risk transfer is the trading floor. Here, salespeople talk to clients and to traders, and traders talk to the brokers or exchanges or other banks who constitute the market. And what's remarkable for an industry so driven by numbers and by new ideas is that the trading floor of the 2020s is largely unchanged from the trading floor of the 1990s, when I started my career. Yeah, it's a lot quieter. More communication takes place electronically than by shouting. But in essence, the traditional roles of a voice salesperson and a human trader haven't really changed. And while many industries, including retail banking, have undergone a huge technological transformation, progress has been slow in investment banking. And while part of that is due to regulatory pressures, we've spent far more time as an industry worrying about collecting data for the regulators than thinking about how we could use it. Part of it is also because it's a complex business. That complexity is a double-edged sword. We have a lot of smart people, but equally, in a fast-paced business, they're liable to go off and build lots of tactical solutions to micro problems and never really submit to an overarching data and analytics strategy. I want to take a quick step back just to show you how thinking about the role of data science in the future of Natwest markets led us to where we are now and to our partnership with Dataiku. A couple of years back, we were defining the vision for client analytics. And I'm sure you can imagine the discussion. Someone's bound to have said, whatever we do, it's got to be future-proof. I'm pretty sure they weren't envisaging a global pandemic. But even in these strange times, actually, the vision that we had then of transforming NatWest markets into a data-driven business is largely unchanged by the current crisis. Ultimately, in almost any circumstances, our customers need a modern and effective capital markets service. And we need, now perhaps more than ever, to understand, predict, and respond effectively and efficiently to our customers' needs. So we wanted, and still want, NatWest Markets to be a data-driven business. That data-driven mantra has been repeated so many times in so many contexts that it might have become a bit meaningless. But for client analytics at least, we did think hard about what that meant and how we could achieve it. And one thing was simple. Before thinking about any sophisticated analytics, we had to be able to get the right data in front of the right people at the right time for it to make a difference. Because it's hard to make data-driven business decisions if you don't have the right data at the right time. Consider a simple example. When a client calls a salesperson, can the salesperson have all the data about the client's recent quote requests, the articles they've read, relevant risk positions on the trading desk, and so on, at their fingertips without having to go and search for it? And that might sound relatively straightforward, but as many of you will know, there's a lot of infrastructure and plumbing required to do even that simple task well. First, the data is likely to come from a variety of systems. Then there's cleaning and transformation to get the data into a meaningful shape. And then there's visualization to show the data in a clear and useful way. And we certainly have tools to do most of these things. In a lot of cases, people use a single tool, and that is Excel. You probably won't be surprised that a lot of requests we get in my team start with, so I built a spreadsheet that does this, but while there are plenty of people around the bank with skills in all sorts of coding and analytics and visualization, there's probably no one who doesn't understand an Excel spreadsheet. It's a kind of lingua franca for the business, and particularly for those domain experts who have incredible knowledge of their areas, but don't have coding or advanced analytics skills. And I'm thinking here of people ranging from operations to finance to sales and to risk management. And even for those people who have analytics skills but aren't coders, Excel is still going to perform a useful function. It's really only the developers and data scientists who are comfortable with writing their own code in R or Python who can really exist outside the world of Excel. And then they still have to communicate with the analysts and the SMEs. So the old world looked something like this. You have the different types of persona who, for the sake of argument, are all striving to become data-driven. The SMEs could really be anyone who has an in-depth knowledge of certain data sets. Then, in the middle, there are the would-be citizen data scientists who do analytics but aren't coders. And over on the right, the relatively small group of data scientists who have coding skills and can do data science outside of the world of Excel. And don't forget, all these people are pretty technically capable. This is the landscape we were considering when we started thinking about providing data science tooling. The visualization piece is relatively separate, and we're a click house at Natwest Markets. But there was a lot of functionality that we wanted from a provider of data science tooling, some of which we listed down the left. So governance got a box because it was something that we really weren't very good at in the existing landscape. So there were literally thousands of tactically built models across the bank, not something that sits particularly comfortably with our heavily regulated status. But equally important were the ability to do data cleaning and manipulation, and all the data science elements that data scientists would do using those tools on the right, as well as the ability to productionize models quickly, share and reuse code, and so on. And the big question mark was really because that space was empty. Data SMEs and would-be citizen data scientists couldn't get involved in this space because they weren't coders. So the technically minded salesperson who had an idea about how to predict a client's activity was stuck and disenfranchised. This was the challenge we wanted to solve. And with that, I'll hand over to Adrian.
Thank you, Charlie. Indeed, as you mentioned, changes in investment banking is difficult. So how Natwest Market has been successful in becoming data-driven. The first pillar of its successful initiative has been to have a top-down approach in defining their strategy. Senior leadership needs to understand the value of AI and data science being implemented at scale across their company, and therefore support the team in allocating time to focus on those initiatives. A recent survey explained that 4 out of 5 companies think they will be out of business in the next 5 years if they don't implement data science and leverage the data. Natwest Market, CDO, has been involved from day one in defining the strategy and has been updated on a regular basis to ensure the project was successful. It's also very important to have a strong executive sponsor. Charlie, with his clear vision of what needed to be done and a strong business insight, has been able to drive his project to success. But aligning business team is not sufficient. The second pillar of success has been to have a strong collaboration and shared goals between the business, the analytics, and the IT team, the trio of success for data science. At Natwest Market, those 3 teams have been able to work together toward a single goal, generating business value quickly, leveraging data. That alignment was also supported by one dedicated team and Vikram Sharma, the project manager, to ensure the project remained on track, strongly collaborating with us to define a success plan, work on use case ideation, prioritization, and identify the value that could be extracted quickly. The third pillar is obviously technology. In an ideal world, a data science project is built in a sequential manner, in silos, with each participant handing over a project once they've finished working on it, from the data preparation to model design and to deploy, often including the model validation team in banking. However, the reality is a bit different, and we often get numerous back and forth between each team. The problem is that more than 87% of projects don't actually reach production and don't make an impact on the business. They stay as proof of concept or test and projects, and so never see the light of production. And you'll only get value once those projects reach production. And if they do reach production, they usually take several months to be deployed and designed and are obsolete or outdated and don't have the right impact on the business. What we allowed Natwest Market to do is to have everyone working at the same place, allowing them to collaborate on the same project at the same time, but also allowing coders, non-coders, and data leaders to understand each other, supporting faster project design. But what will also help is the model validation team to speed up the review of the models. By onboarding them on Dataiku, they spend on average 60% less time to review each model. The new agility and speed also gave them the ability to explore. What team at Natwest Market, who did not have any bandwidth to work on new use cases, has been able to build a POC in less than 1 month and try to validate their assumption. While this has not been successful, that gave them the ability to explore more use cases and faster. So by helping everyone working on a single platform, Dataiku is providing Natwest Market the ability to explore more use cases, develop a new way of communication, and understand each other, all to increase the speed at which they can put model in production on a single platform. And finally, Dataiku is also supporting Natwest Market by fully integrated into the existing infrastructure. Dataiku is an end-to-end data science platform that allows subject matter experts, analysts, data scientists, and MLOps to leverage the power of AI and transforming the business on a single platform. Dataiku is leveraging Natwest Market storage capabilities. With more than 40 built-in data connectors, everyone can access the data they need, regardless of the size, the shape, or the location of the data. But it's also empowering users. Users can visually explore the data with instant insight into quality, relationship, and statistical distribution before going to data prep. With transparent AutoML, advanced analysts can strengthen their skills, or data scientists can leverage pre-built algorithms to power business faster. For complex model or any specialized needs, there are extensive code capabilities to leverage every language, tool, library, and framework to build out a solution only limited to the user's imagination. As it's a browser-based platform, everyone in the project, from the SME, the stakeholders, to the analytic talent, and IT can stay involved in the project at the same time and support the project at the right time. But it's also helped faster production and deployment of model. Once a model is built, deployment is seamless and doesn't require a long queue of recoding because Dataiku optimizes its team member skills. Insights are also delivered faster because Dataiku is leveraging Natwest Market processing capabilities. By leveraging the existing stack on the cloud, you can easily scale up and down to respond to Natwest Market needs. And Dataiku can be deployed on-prem or on the cloud as it is for Natwest Market, or a combination of the two to give them the flexibility they need. And finally, it's a future-proof environment for Natwest Market. As we leverage any existing technology and any new technology, Natwest Market will not have to record anything if they want to move from Kubernetes to Databricks or any other technology. Dataiku is supporting that move seamlessly. Now back to Charlie.
Thanks, Adrian. So the interesting thing for me was that we really started looking at Dataiku as a solution to the isolated problem of how we democratized the analytics that we were doing in the client analytics team. And I am, and always have been, a strong proponent of democratizing analytics rather than centralizing. I believe there's a much greater power in giving people the tools to become data-driven, rather than saying, like, come to us for all your data-driven needs. But it also became clear that this wasn't an isolated problem, and that in fact, if we could fill the gap for client analytics, we could fill the gap for a whole load of other areas across the bank. So it's great to be able to say that in our initial deployment of Dataiku's tooling, we have representatives not just from client analytics, but from all across the trading floor. They represent personas from across the spectrum I've talked about, and one of them is that technically minded salesperson. She collaborated with data scientists on the Dataiku platform to build an anomaly detection model that can alert her and her colleagues to unusual patterns of client activity and prompt timely and informed calls to clients. Not only did that collaboration on the platform involve salespeople and data scientists, it also involved our model governance team. That allowed us to fast-track the model into production on the sales desktop, where it is currently helping that sales team to understand their clients better. The final thing I want to say is that filling the gap that we identified is not the end of the story. We're also looking to Dataiku to accelerate our time to insight by streamlining the data science process, so that getting from a concept to a production-ready model is something we can do dramatically more quickly. And all that is done in a well-controlled environment that promotes collaboration and reuse. It would be foolish of me to predict the demise of the trading floor, but I do believe we're at the beginning of an exciting phase for data and analytics in NatWest markets.
Thanks, Charlie. A really insightful presentation there. We're getting a number of questions come through and linked to the insight we shared earlier on. Are you able to tell us how you're quantifying the benefits to NatWest markets?
Determine what our return on investment is for the kind of investment that we're making in data and analytics. And as a trading business, we're used to looking at numbers and being quite specific about how we measure stuff. And I think that one of the things that's been interesting about this is we've discovered that, in fact, it's not just about measuring direct revenue impact. There are so many other things that we can measure. And I think one of the most important things we can measure actually is the kind of time it takes to get from this thing that I mentioned, like getting from a concept to something that's a production ready model is on the trading floor and in use. And so that time is a really critical factor in how frequently we can turn over ideas and how in a fast moving business we can have that edge in the market. So that's one of the things that we're measuring. But equally, and referring to some of the other things that I was talking about, we have hundreds and if not thousands of tactically built models. And one of our KPIs that we will be deploying is how many tactical models do we have against how many models built on the Dataiku platform. And those are just a couple of the things. Adrian, I don't know if you have some comments on that as well. You've been very involved in the process.
I completely agree. And interestingly, when you scale across the bank, you need to have different indicators or KPI to use to measure. As the first one you say is obviously the ROI, but when you try to scale across the bank, and it's something that we see across all our banking clients, is you need to look at what value you capture, and the speed is probably the most important one. So it's how quickly you can develop model and test them or move to the next one. It is not successful. The second one is obviously more around operational risk and how you can build up on your data governance. And when you build a central platform, it's something that you cannot necessarily monetize, and you cannot say, well, we saved $1 billion in fine by having a stronger infrastructure, but you know that it's easier for the regulator, it's easier for auditability, and it's easier for scalability. So I think what you highlight, Charlie, is probably what we see across the market at the moment and where the benefits can be gained. And obviously in banking, it's harder because it's highly regulated. So all changes take more time and need to be stronger, and we need to ensure that we have the right platform behind it. So when we look at how you measure value, you need to think of different dimensions. And you also need to look at time and how long it will take to pick up.
Thank you, Charlie. Thanks very much for that. Let's have another look at our questions. Okay, there's one here that talks about the cultural adoption piece. So what type of reaction did your colleagues have to the changes that you're making? And what are some of the cultural hurdles that you've had to overcome?
I've put up that picture of the trading floor in my talk, and I think that the fact that that view of the trading floor hasn't really changed over the last 30 years gives some sense of some of the challenges that we had with getting this accepted. So actually, very interestingly, there are different groups of people on the trading floor. And in some ways, they fall into maybe three categories in terms of their reaction to the data-driven journey. And I think first is senior management. So senior management have generally been extremely supportive. They have the strategic vision to see that it's something that we have to invest in. It's something that if we don't invest, we are just going to be left behind. And also we have at the more junior end of the spectrum, you've got lots of graduates and people with a few years experience who are really, really now the digital natives, and in their real lives, as it were, outside of work, outside of the trading floor, they really understand and know and use and feel comfortable with technology. And they see, in fact, that as soon as they walk through the door from the street onto the trading floor, they step back a number of years because we are not as advanced as all the consumer technology that's available out there. So that part of the population is also very receptive. The difficult bit is in the middle. People who've been around for a while in the market, they kind of know what they're doing, they know what works and so on. And they can be somewhat resistant to change and to changing the way that they do things. But I think the really important thing for us is that we've been able to demonstrate to a number of people in that category, and those are the sort of hearts and minds that we have to win. We've been able to demonstrate to them the value of using data and analytics, and that perhaps if you can just show one salesperson one piece of information that they hadn't thought of themselves, you start to win that battle.
I think, yeah, small things. What we realize usually is what helped people to move forward is when they realize that if you work on a central platform, that ability to collaborate together. And usually by enhancing collaboration, you realize that it comes back to our previous discussion around the value, but it comes back to people realizing that if you enhance collaboration in one central platform, then you'll be able to speed the model that you're developing, but also the accuracy and how the problem is responding to a business issue. And then you're being able to productionalize that. So I think what's really helpful is it's sometimes hard to convince people to change platforms, but when they see the benefit and how quickly, how much time they can save and how quickly they can move on to the next task, then that's where you see really, and you start to convince people. And usually starting by a small team is helpful to demonstrate what has been successful and then how that can benefit the wider population.
Yeah, there's something I'd add there actually, because one of the initial use cases that we tried out was for our quants. Now, our quants are generally, very sophisticated mathematical people. They write models. That's their job. They used the Dataiku platform to tackle a problem that they'd been thinking about, but didn't actually feel they had the capacity to do in the past. It didn't really work out, but that didn't matter because, in fact, what we found is that we're able to tackle problems that we wouldn't consider before. So these guys are really receptive. They love having something where they can try their ideas really quickly, and I think it's a great platform for innovation like that.
I think it ties back to what we're discussing for the previous question, but also what I was explaining in my presentation. So you don't necessarily get value in terms of dollars or pounds saving, but then you get value because the team can explore a backlog of ideas that they couldn't think about, or they never thought they would have the bandwidth to do. So really one of the value you can generate is liberate time for the team and free time, so then they can explore further ideas and go further and a step further than what they used to do and used to be able to do. And that, I think, by effect, that will incite other people on moving on to more recent platform, a data science platform, to explore further.
Yeah, to add to that, I guess like one of the mid people who have experience doing these sort of things. The problem with that is they would have tried a similar set of tools before, and they would have faced certain challenges, and that's where the resistance comes from. And I think what Dataiku shows, actually it helps them to actually quickly try those aspects as well, actually, and it is a bit professional way of doing things as well. So some of the caveats which they would normally take by experience, they would know by heart what they would bump into. I think Dataiku helps helps them see the problem clearly as well. So if they do have some doubts, they can actually quickly try that out and get a conclusion as well. So that way, I've seen people adapting that with people with experience, solving that problem quickly as well.
Cool, thank you for that answer. It's nice to see how you're overcoming those cultural challenges that you're facing. Moving on slightly, I think we've got time for one more question. Looking at the technology and the solution you're implementing, what's been some of the major hurdles and roadblocks you've had to overcome, and how are you looking to scale the solution in the future?
I don't think we had major roadblock within Natwest market. I think, to come back to what I was saying earlier in my presentation, the fact that we aligned the business, IT, and analytics team together made that we obviously had some small issues and problems we had to overcome, but everyone was collaborating together. So we never really had any issues, and even if we had a couple of days or weeks of delays when implementing, I think everyone wanted understanding the challenges that we were facing. So I think it's obvious that when you have a project like this one in a bank of the size that Natwest markets, you will face roadblocks. But if everyone is collaborating together, that's not a massive hurdle, I would say. And interestingly, because Natwest market has been implementing Dataiku on the cloud, we've been able to develop and support a new infrastructure and then work with them on what will be the future infrastructure and a scalable one. So it's really defining the basis now at what will be the future data science or analytics infrastructure for Natwest market. So I think really, as long as you collaborate and every team is aligned, if the IT, the business, and the analytics are all aligned together, I think you can face those challenges. Usually what we see in a way we have real roadblocker is when the business and IT are not talking together, and then the goal is not aligned. So we'll obviously have discrepancies. But I don't think we had any major issue in Natwest. I don't know what your opinion is, Charlie.
No, I think the process went relatively smoothly. I mean, some of the things that we have encountered when tackling sort of onboarding third-party vendors has typically been around information security, and obviously things are extremely tightly controlled but we work together with our IT, with our InfoSec department, and the process was relatively smooth. And when it comes to scaling, I guess we're at quite an early stage of the engagement. But one of the things that we've been thinking about is, as our sort of data-driven journey progresses, we are going to need a sort of a more like an operational aspect to deploying and using machine learning models. So I think for me, the scalable thing is about getting the organization right, having a machine learning ops function and so on, which is something that's being developed throughout the Natwest group. So it's just having that kind of the right organization to support the growth of data science and the growth and the use of models developed on the platform that we're looking at right now.
And if I can add to that, on our side from Dataiku, what we want to ensure is that we're building the technology that will support that. So on our side, we want to ensure that whatever technology choices Natwest markets will make, we'll be here to respond to those. So at the moment, it might be cloud, but in the future, that might be a different cloud provider, or that might be a different choices. But we always want to be there and avoid creating silos, but rather embracing the different technologies that Natwest market is choosing, which is, I think, very important, because then on Charlie's side, they can align and have ops that can support that growth, but they know that whatever technology they make will be here to support.
Thanks, everyone. Really, really great session. Excellent points around scaling analytics across your organization. really critical to draw out that value that we were talking about earlier, both for your own company and in this case across the market.
Unfortunately, we're at time now, so thank you for joining today. But before we go, please come back tomorrow when we'll be joined by Nationwide and Informatica discussing the data governance journey we've been on. So, it's goodbye from Natalie Williams.
And goodbye from Andy Gould.
We'll see you tomorrow.